Greetings, fellow supporters of Pennsylvania Equality Project and PEP Radio. You're here with another edition of PEP Talks Uncut. Joining us today is Donna Iannone. Donna, thank you for being with us.
Well, thank you for having me.
Can you tell us a little bit about what brings you to the show today?
Well, I got an invite through some colleagues of mine for the Bradford County that are, we just formed a new group called the Endless Mountains Gay Pride. And so that's the group that kind of connected me. It was Bradford County Democrats kind of got me. They picked me as their spokesperson.
Okay, great. So, and that's good because we've been looking to talk with people from various political parties. On one of our previous episodes, we had Glenn Tuttle, who's the chair of the Libertarian Party for Crawford County. So it's good to talk to somebody from a different county who's in a different political party. Okay. So welcome to the show, Donna.
Thank you.
One of the main concerns that I think we all face as we head to the November election is the integrity of the election. How does that resonate with folks out in Bradford County and Sullivan County?
To me, it is our utmost important process is to make sure our elections are secure and safe. I was actually the chairman of the Sullivan County Election Board last cycle. I've gone through 12 different elections through primaries and the general elections. I can tell you 2020 was super difficult. We dealt with numerous lawsuits, a lot of lies. It just made it way more difficult than it was in 16. So it's been, and what happened is they changed some of the laws at the state level. That was a bipartisan bill that tried to make absentee voting easier for people. And this was all prior to COVID. It was a bipartisan bill. I think it was Act 12. I forget the exact act now. But actually, it was imperative that people can vote securely at home. And with COVID, it really made a difference. More and more people could vote. Mm-hmm. And there's such a process in place to make sure that there's no fraudulent voting. It's very, very, very rare. It's difficult. Everything's verified and checked through all the processes. There's a statewide system called SURE that is a database throughout the state that checks to make sure people aren't registered in a couple different counties. It's really is secure. And it's so unfortunate when I hear people say that our elections are not safe and that illegals are voting. That is not happening. It is very, very safe. And I think you just need to have a better candidate if you want to win.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So, speaking of candidates, now we are a 501c3 nonprofit organization, and as such, we cannot endorse, support, or oppose candidates. However, when one candidate, whose name shall be omitted at this point, has his surrogates filing numerous lawsuits all across the country to change the rules at the last second. For example, out in Nebraska, trying to get it to be a winner takes all in the Electoral College. And the governor stepped in and said, the legislative session has ended. We're not reopening the legislature just for this. You'll have to take it up again either next year for the 2028 election cycle or what have you, but it's not happening this year. So Nebraska is continuing with its current rules. So here in Pennsylvania, there have been some cases that have gone forward regarding signatures on mail-in ballots. Where do we stand with mail-in ballots? Are you familiar with this?
Yes, very much. I mean, I think that we saw a lot of people vote by mail-in voting the last cycle. I have to say, I'm a retired commissioner, so I've been out of this for this particular election cycle. Uh-huh. But I know from the past, it was very, very, very secure and safe. We had, I think, we had more than we ever had vote by mail, and it's because it was safe and secure, and it's going to continue to increase. Some states, that's all they have is mostly all they have is mail-in voting.
Uh-huh.
And it's been say it works in other states. Why can't it work here? I just don't understand. Colorado, that's how they do it. I think it's
Right.
Oregon is and Washington. So the other states are doing it. Mail-in voting is safe and secure. Ballots are verified, and it's just the ease because not everybody can take the day off and go vote. And I think it's so important that people understand that your ballot, when you have to request it. Sometimes third parties were sending out applications for people, but that was just an application for a mail-in vote. And then you also each year you have to say yeah, you'll get a letter from your elections office that says I want to continue to vote by mail. And then they'll send you out a ballot for the primary and the general election, and that so you have to request that. They just don't automatically mail them to you. They're requested each year. You have to go through the system and make sure you still want to receive a mail-in ballot. And then that's all verified. And
Right.
then it's scanned, it's verified. And then once you mail in, you vote by mail, you are not allowed to go to the precinct unless you have gotten your ballot, what they would call, I guess it'd be stricken, so that they would say, hey, I don't want to do that. That can all be done through a process that at your local election office.
Right. Right. So full disclosure, I happen to be a judge of elections here in Crawford County. And one of the things that I recall from our training was that folks who presented a mail-in ballot on the day of the election, and it's got to be there 100%, can surrender that mail-in ballot and vote in person.
Live. Exactly. Yes.
Okay. So we want to make sure that's abundantly clear to listeners that they're not trying to scam the system. They're not trying to cheat the system. The ballot, the mail-in ballot that they hand in is then discarded, disposed of.
Right. It's sent back
process.
to the elections office to verify that that's been crossed off. So we want to make sure that nobody's voting twice, which
Right.
it's very, very rare. There's always somebody that can do something if they really, really put their minds to it, but it's really, really difficult because when you go into a polling location, there's a poll book, as you know, that's going to tell you who's allowed to vote in that precinct. And if you're not on that, you can ask for a provisional ballot that would allow you to say, okay, I should be, but I'm not. And then it can get investigated. And then that would come up to the election board at some point when we go through and start doing curing the ballots or starting to process the ballots. You want to make sure if you do mail-in voting that you put it in the secrecy envelope and that you fill out the back of the envelope and you sign it and you put the date that you mailed it. There was a confusion, and I think there's been some cases about the date because sometimes an older person might have put their birthday or but it was timestamped correctly, but they didn't put the right date. And so that's been a little bone of contention with some of these people with lawsuits. And it was just, I think a lot of times it's just a person, especially a senior citizen, that they see date and they just put their birthday or just a date that they shouldn't have.
Right.
And I think that's an honest mistake, especially for a senior citizen.
So, for example, here, when I got my mail-in ballot, and I've already sent mine back, the mail-in ballot envelope that has the date on it has the number 2024 already stamped on it. So the only mistake you can make is dating it for after November 5th.
Exactly. Yeah, that they just did that this year because before you had to put a date, you had to put the year. So I'm glad they did that this year.
Yeah, and that makes sense. I guess the only other thing you could possibly have done is attempt to vote prior to the ballots even being printed. For example, if you put down your birth date and it's in June, well, the conventions hadn't even happened yet in June,
Right.
and Biden was still in the race. So yeah, okay,
That's it. That I think that was a good fix that they agreed on is just putting putting the 24 on there. That might alleviate some of the issues because I think I don't understand why anybody would want to throw out a legal ballot. Like to me, every vote matters, every vote counts, and every vote is secure and it's processed properly. And I just don't know how to get that through people's brains that this is our right is to vote and everyone should have access to vote.
okay.
Regardless of their political party.
Regardless of political party, that's a valid point. It shouldn't matter whether you're green or libertarian or Democrat, whatever. Uh,
Everybody should get the power to vote. That's our one right that we all have, and we should be able to exercise that without fear.
Correct. Now, uh, voting is a very important issue to you. Clearly, you take it very passionately, but there are other issues out in Bradford and Sullivan counties that are impacting the LGBTQ community. And among them are issues related to things such as housing or public accommodations. And I got to tell you, uh, I've been through Bradford County before, and one of the things I like about Bradford County are the numerous parks and the recreational facilities that are out that way, where you can get out into nature and just relax, take a big deep breath, and feel better about yourself. So, what are some of the things that folks coming to Bradford County, Sullivan County area might do if they were coming to visit, especially folks in the LGBTQ community?
I think we have a lot of opportunities. I'm a big cyclist. This spring I cycled cross country. So we just put on a race that was a 430-mile gravel ride throughout our region. And we had people from all over the country do it. And it was really amazing. So, but we were able to use existing infrastructure for that event. And so there's a lot of events like that. We just started a gay alliance here in Sullivan and Bradford County to try to encourage people to feel safe and welcome. Actually, our mayor is gay, and in our county seat, or in our county, Dushore. I was gay as a commissioner, and a
Uh-huh.
lot of my neighbors are. A lot of people in Bradford County the same, and we had an amazing gay pride event in June. Last June and the June prior. So
Mhm.
we're really trying to have more outreach to the community so people can feel safe and secure in their local community. Our local Bradford County Arts Council, they did a film. I think it's called It was Going Out, I think was the name of it. I can't remember now, where several individuals were interviewed, and it was shown in the theater, and we had such a great response. It was, I think, about 10 people were interviewed and what it's like to be gay in northeastern Pennsylvania, and it was well done, well received, and our local libraries did it, and our local Bradford County Arts Council. It was amazing what their feedback we got.
Well, that's incredible because, I mean, all too often, the news from Pennsylvania's LGBTQ community is heavily, heavily dictated by cities like Pittsburgh and Philadelphia, and to a lesser extent, Erie. So it's good to hear voices coming from Bradford and Sullivan County, which we don't often hear from. Uh, what would you say is, not to be a negative Nelly, but what are some of the negative aspects about living in out your way? Are there any?
Well, I like living here, so I'm probably not a good answer for that. But you have to drive. If you want to do something, you got to drive an hour. If you want
Uh,
to go to see a show, or if you want to go to the mall, like yesterday, we went shopping for our trip, so we had to drive an hour, and that's just something you get used to. It's just there's not much traffic, so
right.
you can you could either sit in traffic for an hour or you can drive for an hour. So that's the big thing is just the commute time. We've been able to, we have a lot of people employed. We have some good industry here. We're trying to grow that, but I think we can grow too by doing more things through economic development, like outdoor recreation stuff. I believe wholeheartedly that outdoor recreation and things like that can really make a positive impact to communities using existing infrastructure. Sometimes if to bring in a factory, there's so much work involved.
Right.
So to try to take advantage of your existing infrastructure, I think is the way to go. Personally, that's what we did with our gravel loop and some of the other projects that we worked on with our heritage region, our visitors bureaus, to try to bring in people to our communities because they spend money. I cycled across country. I spent money. I toured all these little towns and I absolutely loved it. I visited courthouses. I just think if we get to showcase what we have, that's what's important.
So you've raised an interesting topic, the cross country cycling trip. What was the number one highlight that stood out in your mind from traveling all the way across the country by bike?
I I met amazing people. I had it was an opportunity of my lifetime. It was a 2 months. I cycled 3,076 miles with 24 other women that were my age between 50 and 72. But the highlight was just the interaction with a lot of the communities. Most people were fantastic. They were curious about us. You got a bunch of old ladies riding bikes throughout the western states, and it was, or in the southern states. It was
Huh.
just an incredible opportunity. And for me, my favorite spot was Silver City, New Mexico. It was tough. It was a lot of climbing, but it was absolutely beautiful when you can climb up 8,000 feet.
I can't even imagine. I mean, I've hiked up in the mountains in Colorado, but I can't imagine biking through New Mexico after having gone through all of Texas and all of the other states before it. So kudos to you for
Thank you.
such a long journey. And what was the destination
We
you arrived at in the West Coast?
we started in San Diego and we ended in Saint Augustine, Florida.
Oh, okay, so you went from west to east. Got it. Okay.
Yes, yes, yes. Because we started in March and ended in May 1st. We started March
Okay.
7th. So it was about 60 days of riding. It was just phenomenal. And we had, like, when we got into St. Augustine on our last day, we had a police escort into the beach, which was, you got to, you dip your tire when you leave, and then you dip your tire when you arrive at your destination. And we had some mishaps. There was times where it sucked because it was terrible weather. We got pulled because of 75-mile-an-hour winds going into
That's
El Paso.
hurricane strain.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah,
So
wow.
we got pulled that day. So anyway, it was just a unique. I since I was a commissioner, I visited a lot of courthouses because it was fun to see the different architecture and talk to the different people that were elected officials that I was previously,
Uh-huh.
and to find out what's going on in different communities.
Okay. So, how do you build up the endurance to go on that long a bike ride? I'm happy to walk down to the store, or if I do get on a bike, I might go for a few miles, but over 2,000, 3,000 miles, that's incredible.
Yeah, it was just part of. I trained a lot in my bedroom because I'm
Uh-huh.
in northeastern Pennsylvania, so there's
Right.
not a lot of. I couldn't get outside a lot, but we just rode, and then the more you ride, the better you feel. And a big
Sure.
question is, I ended up wearing two pairs of bike shorts because sometimes it's a little discomfort.
Sure,
But
sure.
it was, we I went with a group called Women's Tours, and it was a fully supported ride. I just I got to feel like a teenager again. I just got to ride bike. I didn't have everything was taken care of at home, and I didn't have to worry about anything. Just ride bike and stay safe. I gotta say that was the biggest challenge is the traffic because we were on the roads, like on highways. So you just prayed you didn't get hit, and I'm not even exaggerating.
Wow. Wow.
There was debris there, and most of the times we were literally on like Interstate 10. And so there's
Uh-huh.
trucks going 80, 90 miles an hour past you, and you try to get off to the side of the shoulder the best you can.
Yeah.
And then when you travel into a city, that was, I'm a country girl, so biking in a city and going around circles and stuff like that was a little intimidated. But normally when there was a situation like that, we rode together as a group. A lot of times I rode by myself just because we all had our different, you know. I was getting done early, like at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and I decided I needed to really enjoy this trip and see what's out there. And that's what I ended up doing. And it was amazing. People were so nice. We got to see, Silver City, New Mexico. The reason I think that stood out, it was such a gay friendly city. They had all kinds of signs for welcoming gays and
Mhm.
transgenders into their community. So that, to me, I guess that's why it stood out the most, because it was so welcoming.
Wonderful. That is wonderful. Are there any particular issues facing voters this election cycle that are of greatest concern to you?
To me, it's democracy. I believe that we want to make sure that we preserve our democracy, and everybody has a vote after, has a voice after this election. I'm very, very concerned. Someone said to me the other day that I watch too much mainstream media. No, I just have to listen to what he says, and that's all that I have to do to convince me that he's a crazy man, and that we would be, the news out today that he gave Russia our COVID machines for testing when we had people here that needed that. This isn't a joke. To me, this is a very, very serious election. And to have so many Republicans coming out in support of Kamala Harris, that to me is a big sign. I just have to hear what he says. I had somebody kind of get in an argument with me about, I listen to too much mainstream media. No, I don't. I just listen to what he has to say. And it's scary what he has to say. And I just hope people understand that if he wins, this could look like a different country after January 21st when he would get sworn in. And I pray that doesn't happen. I think she's got the dignity. She's got so much. She's just such a great, I think we are so lucky to have her as our candidate right now. I don't think we could have a better person in this position right now, because she's got it all. She's a whole package. He cares about people. And I don't think he could care less about any of these people that are sending him money. And why would you send a billionaire money?
Well, one would think he wouldn't need it, especially considering, oh, wait a minute, that's right. He's facing, what is it, a $380 million judgment against him in the E. Jean Carroll case. He's facing, he's got 34 felony convictions awaiting sentencing at the end of, right, the week after the election. And the list just goes on and on. The Georgia case, the Washington, D.C. case, the Florida case with all of the classified documents. So there's plenty.
Yes. And there's a Supreme Court that's supporting him. And that's what's even scarier, that they should be held at. That's what's scary, is having the Supreme Court that will do anything he says. You have 6 justices that really don't care what the rest of America is thinking, or at least the majority of what women are dying from abortions, from a lack of abortions. Nobody should ever be able to tell any human being what they can and cannot do with their body. I don't care if it's a man or a woman. Nobody should ever be able to tell a woman, especially, what she can do with her body. It's her body, and nobody ever has that right. Abortion's terrible. I never had to make that decision, but It's up to her to make that decision, and her doctor and her faith. And nobody should ever be able to tell a woman what she can or cannot do.
The flip side of that is not necessarily abortion, but for couples that want to start families and go through in vitro fertilization.
Exactly.
So Project 2025 and Agenda 47 are incredibly invasive in dealing with both issues.
And who wants to track a 13-year-old's period? That's craziness. Like, I feel, I don't have children, but if I had a daughter, I would be so scared for her right now, because she could end up in a world that doesn't look anything like the world I grew up in. I couldn't play softball. I couldn't play Little League when I was a kid, because I'm 61. I was right at that age where we weren't allowed to play just because I was a girl. And that's ridiculous. I don't think that should ever matter what your sex is.
There are a number of issues in Pennsylvania impacting the LGBTQ plus community, such as book bans within public school libraries. Discrimination is still a serious concern. My biggest worry happens to be housing and housing discrimination. And my fear is that youth lack the necessary space to turn to for housing in the event their parents kick them out. At the opposite end of life, When one is older, the LGBTQ community members are often familyless, especially folks from our generation. We
Exactly.
don't have the familial support necessary. You mentioned, I think the other day, that the group that you belong to is looking into initiatives regarding housing for older folks.
Yeah, I think one of our goals, we just had our formation meeting last week. So I think one of our goals is to look in some of these topics and see what we can do to enhance. I'm going to be in that boat probably, who knows when, that I'm going to may need a nursing home. And we want to make sure that people can get into them regardless of what their background is, because everybody's going to need some support at some time in their life. And it shouldn't matter if you're gay or straight or green or blue. You should be able to have those services with dignity so that you can be taken care of. When I hear family members say you should be dead because you're gay, that is just bizarre. That is like, what kind of religion makes you think that's okay? Like, that's not okay. That is not okay. How can you just disown people because of who they love? Like, they should be glad they love somebody, for gosh sake. I think having somebody in your life is what we're all about. We want to be kind. We want to be generous. We want to love our neighbors. We just don't want our neighbors to hate us because of who we love.
Exactly. I mean, if you happen to have a partner who is of the same gender, opposite gender, what difference does it make to anyone who's your neighbor or who lives in another town? It's none of their business.
It's nobody's business. As long as
Exactly.
you're not hurting anyone, that's all that matters, really, is that we need to make sure people are protected, and no matter who they love, if they're a man or a woman, they need to have these protections. And I think that's what Kamala Harris can do. She'll make sure we're protected. Donald Trump could give a crap about us, and that's fearful for me because I don't want to live in a dictatorship. I want to live where I'm allowed to love who I love and be where and live where I live. And I don't think anybody should be able to take that away from us.
One of the demographics when it comes to voting for candidates that is growing at a massive rate and registering. They're not just aging into the system. They're actively registering to vote. Are younger folks. So Gen Z and Gen Alpha are coming of age and reaching the point where they're going to be voting. Do you see the country taking a shift towards more of an embrace of the LGBTQ community? Or, I mean, because given the headlines lately, it feels like we're regressing a little. Where do you see us, say, in 5 years?
I think this younger generations are rock stars. A lot of these kids I've met, they are going to change the world. When you watch some of these young people, they don't care. They just are out there doing their TikToks and having fun. You have those few that you hear about that are I guess I would call them evil, that are bashing somebody's lifestyle. But I think most kids, they don't care.
Yeah.
They just want to live their lives the way we did, have rights. They don't want their rights taken away. They want to have a good job, and they don't care. They don't care who you love, and they're so accepting. And I just love being around young people because they're such a breath of fresh air that I think is outstanding. I just love being around young kids. I think they have so much to offer, and then we need to let their voices, because who we're voting for today affects what their lives is going to be like in 20 years.
Absolutely, it does. And my thinking is that within the next 5 to 10 years, we're going to look back on this time and say the rights that we have secured came through a hard fight, but we fought it, we won it, and we're not going back.
I hope you're right.
And I think that's the message that resonates
Yep.
from the Democrats.
Yep, I think you're right. I hope you're right. I believe strongly in this younger generation. Like I say, I think a lot of these young people I meet are so passionate about making sure that we don't go backwards, because but some of them aren't didn't know what I went through as a teenager, you know, now because they've had it all. But I think a lot of them are paying attention, and they are our future, and they're paying attention with this election. And I think that's why you see so many of them registering to vote and being so politically active and going out and canvassing and making sure that their voices are heard, because it is their voices that is so important. Because you know, God willing, I might have another 20 some years. These kids have another 50, 60, 70 years. So they want to make sure that their world, you know, through climate change or through whatever, that it's still going to be there, and that they're still going to be living in a democracy.
Exactly. Exactly. Well, Donna, thank you so much for your time today. Our 30 minutes is up.
Okay.
Yep, that's our show for this week. For those of you who are listening, we are on the Live 365 app. And you can also catch us over on Roku and our website, paequality.com /PEP Radio. Donna, again, thank you for being on the show. It was a pleasure.
And thank
And
you.
we will be back again next week with another edition of PEP Talks Uncut.